Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is locked in an epic battle with presidential candidate John Delaney. It hasn't been a good last few days for John Delaney. He had a great time here on the Young Turks, where he was last Friday doing a post game. Check that out for members in the conversation. But John Delaney went to the California Democratic Convention and gave a speech in which he mentioned Medicare for all, and it did not go well.
But we need, as Democrats, to build an economy that works. But it's got to be with smart policies. Medicare for all may sound good, but it's actually not good policy, nor is it good politics. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. 100.
That did not go well. So that was John Delaney at the California Democratic Convention, and he went on right after that moment of getting booed for what essentially was a full minute, and you couldn't really hear him through the boos as he said this: "We should have universal health care, but it shouldn't be the kind of health care that kicks 150 million Americans off their health care. That's not smart policy." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez chimed in and said this: "Since there's so many people running for president and not enough for Senate, instead of obsessing over who's a front runner, maybe we can start with some general eliminations." This awful, untrue line got booed for a full minute. John Delaney, thank you, but please sashay away. He responded, but I would like to hear you respond.
I just choose this emoji.
Yeah, get out, get out.
No, I mean, she's right. Listen, John Delaney's not gonna be our next president of the United States. Everyone knows that, I get it, and it's really awful. You're like, anything can happen, but not really. So it's like, you don't blow your job that you have now and like what you could be doing for the country.
John Delaney is one of the wealthiest people in America, but he's like millions and millions and millions of dollars. But I'm not really as bothered by his statement about Medicare for all, the initial clip we just played, as I am by the thing I read where he was essentially
He backs it up with more bad advice.
Yeah, he said we should have universal healthcare, but it shouldn't be the kind of healthcare that kicks 150 million Americans off healthcare. That is just already losing the rhetorical debate and utterly giving up on it.
It's also a scare tactic that it doesn't have fact. Like, I want everyone to have healthcare, but I don't want to kick people off of healthcare. So wait, that's not even that. Those two things don't even belong together.
Right. Well, yes.
It's a scare tactic.
Exactly.
It doesn't give the full story of what you're saying.
A lot of Democratic candidates are starting to do this. There's a huge backing for Medicare for all. It polls extraordinarily well when you ask people, would you like Medicare for all? Because everybody loves Medicare. I mean, by and large, it's like polls at 80-something% among people who have it. And this is the idea that you would expand it, but a lot of the candidates are now coming in and saying, I want Medicare for all who want it. Because, and I think this is the answer, the unions are a giant voting bloc. And one of the reasons that unions can get so much support is because they're the ones who provide healthcare. You get that union thing. I know, like if you're in the Screen Actors Guild, you get like amazing health insurance. But rather than pitch,
it's all right.
Listen, we're still gonna have protections for unions outside of your health insurance. We still need unions, don't worry about it. And we're gonna alleviate that financial burden from unions and put it so that everyone can have access to really good health care.
And as someone who has paid into like insurance from SAG, I don't care where the insurance comes from. I don't feel like, well, it's almost like it reminds me of the minimum wage argument. Well, I went to school, and so I'm a paramedic, and I don't think someone who works at McDonald's should make as much money as me. I don't care that they can't live. I just don't think, like the idea that like I lose some of the prestige of what my job means if someone who I feel is beneath me makes as much as me.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to make more, but like you still like.
Well, this is completely outside of that. It
just reminds me of that, like as if like this insurance is not good enough, so we paid into this, so we want to keep this. We deserve this.
Yes, that is. There are a bunch of different versions of Medicare for all.
Right.
What he is trying to pitch is essentially this Heritage Foundation Obamacare thing, where you just kind of expand certain coverages, but you don't get around the fact that, listen, we have a private insurance system here in America, and whether you like the concept of that or not, we pay twice as much for our health care and have worse results than everyone else who has a system more similar to the Medicare for All system. That's what's very frustrating about this. John Delaney responded to AOC saying, hey AOC, we have the same goal, universal healthcare for everyone. We just have different ways of getting there. Healthcare is the #1 issue for voters, so let's debate the way forward. Any show of your choosing. Healthcare is too important for tweets. We need real discussion.
I mean, you can have a real discussion on Twitter. It's 2019, it's just where we are now. But
yeah.
I see what he's saying, I don't know.
It's funny given that Michael Starr Hopkins' press secretary said this, the only person Congresswoman AOC helped with her tweet about Congressman Delaney was Donald Trump. If Democrats are serious about beating the president at the ballot box, we need less political grandstanding and more truth telling from the Bernie wing of the party. So that is a very boring, sad, but what is Amy Klobuchar approach, where it's just like, I am going to be the moderate, party moderate.
I feel like one could argue that running for president when you know you're not gonna win helps Donald Trump. I don't know,
It's weird, because later it says 2016 should have taught us if we allow this primary to become a popularity contest on Twitter rather than a debate of ideas in the public square, the country will lose. We've seen this playbook before and it ends with a second term for Donald Trump. It's like, well, guess what? The person who went for the popularity contest ended up winning the presidency.
And I think, I have always said this, I don't believe everyone who has entered the race for president thinks they are going to win. I think a lot of it is to gain popularity. It's a business thing, so it's like,
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.